thing. I'm going to launch Thunder Funder, this whole shebang, right? Had to do a new incorporation, parent company, wholly owned entity. Yet I chose to set what I feel is a very low and fair valuation because that's the deal that I would want on the other side of that table, because that's usually where I'm sitting as the VC. So I set a deal that I would like to see, also with a discount on my own note. If I don't clear the cap, everyone also gets a bonus. Okay, I put that in there. And it was not that difficult to raise 25,000 there, 50,000 here, etc. And that's enough to get maybe a CTO or a co-founder or a VP of engineering or just some small bit of let's go fuel. Okay. And that's it. That's what you really need to get started.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Source, your essential podcast for all things Bitcoin. I'm Dawdu, your host for today's thought-provoking session. We're thrilled to have with us a guest who has an incredibly diverse and fascinating background, both in the world of Bitcoin and far beyond. Mike Jarmuz is the CEO of Thunder Funder, the founder of Lightning Ventures, and an advisor to several Bitcoin companies like Azteco and Satoshi Money. Mike, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is dope.
Likewise. So, Mike, this is your first time here. Let's start with your newest kind of thing that you've been building in the ecosystem. Let's start with Thunder Funder. For those who might not be familiar, what is Thunder Funder and what sets it apart from other funding platforms?
Okay. So Thunder Funder is a Reg CF funding portal that is dedicated to investing in open source technologies, which of course is also Bitcoin startups and Bitcoin projects. And that, was primarily the entire focus, of course, with Lightning Ventures, and also really the only thing I care about. So that is the goal there. And the difference is this is a platform where everyone can invest. Anyone, nearly anyone, can't say everyone, but almost anyone can invest and participate in the potentially exciting world of investing in startup companies or early stage projects. So the difference between us and a lot of the larger companies out there, if you've heard of things like WeFunder or Start Engine, there's a lot of projects on those websites, and it's definitely about quantity. Where there's just a lot, because that's the revenue model, is quantity. So we're not going to have quantity. We're definitely going to focus on quality, and that'll be our focus. That's our niche. Also, maybe setting up things where people can invest using Bitcoin. That would be cool, right? To be able to fund these deals. If you were going to invest, say, $1,000 in Satoshi Money, and you were able to pay that through your Satoshi Money wallet, right? That would be kind of cool. So working on getting those things live and working on getting our first few deals live. So we'll have a hyper-focused approach and niche, which is going to be open source and Bitcoin.
Nice, nice. And I apologize to my audience because I'm kind of like a nerd for this kind of stuff. So, you might not see the absolute quiddity of me asking Mike like his background, where he sources Bitcoin knowledge. That'll come later, but I really want to learn more about Thunder Funder. So, Mike, blockchain technology and Web3 principles are reshaping the financial landscape, as we can clearly see. How does Thunder Funder incorporate these technologies into its platform, and what advantages does this bring to the projects that you support?
Um, Everyone throws around those words, and we actually have nothing to do with that. We have nothing to do with Web3 or other blockchains or anything like that. We're in the camp that really Bitcoin is the only blockchain and the only purpose for a blockchain. But yeah, there's a lot of innovations that are going on in this space that other things are doing. And maybe, the kid's sword, the sword in your kid's video game doesn't need to be secured by the most important thing on the planet right now. Maybe that's better off somewhere else. But these are low time preference investments. These are long time horizons. Okay, just like Bitcoin, you're used to it, right? And it takes a while for a company to really mature and go through their life cycle. So when you invest that money, you pretty much that it's extremely illiquid and might go to zero. That is definitely a possibility. So yeah, these are not tradable afterwards. This isn't something where if you invested $1,000 into Satoshi Money or whatever your favorite Bitcoin startup was, and 12, 14 months later, this isn't going to be put on some kind of token that then trades on some kind of aftermarket. Quite frankly, I don't like those things. I don't think it breeds good investors and good investor behavior. And I mean, if I was a founder and there was a possibility of my equity trading later like that, I wouldn't do the deal. So we're not really focusing on any of that. I think some of the other some of the other Reg CF portals are all kind of like crypto blockchained out with all that stuff. And maybe those founders and those people don't particularly care about the quality of the people that are investing in their companies. I do. So I don't want somebody who can just turn around and dump. So that's what we're doing with Web3 and blockchain. Basically nothing.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, of course, I know that back in the days, you spent quite a few of your years in New York City, and New York City is kind of like this melting pot of just businesses, entrepreneurial spirit. Are there any particular sectors within the Bitcoin or the broader tech space that you're essentially excited about, even though you don't really mention those things now in Thunder Funder?
Yeah, well, it's going to be great when the U.S. government isn't actively working against you. If you're a
Yeah,
Bitcoin startup, that'll be the first nice change of pace. Is
yeah.
getting some sort of environment where you can actually operate a company. So, look, I'm pretty boring. I mean, I like boring companies. I know that there's a lot of layer two talk and this, that, and the other thing. I'm really kind of focused on the portfolio companies that we have and the things that are out there right now and live, other sort of protocols and layer twos and things. I don't really know too much about it. I'm not really, maybe if I did know something about it, I would be excited about it. I had a conversation with the CEO of Edge Wallet, Paul Pui, and they were looking at integrating and doing something really cool, non-custodial and all of that. And I said to him in Nashville, like, why are you not adding Lightning? He's got like hundreds of thousands of users, like Edge Wallet, all the crypto. Why are you not adding Lightning? Do you hate your customers? He's like, oh no, I'm not excited about Lightning. I'm excited about Spider Chain. And I have to tell you, I don't even know what that is. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I don't know what that is. I don't know what Spider Chain is. I got to take like a Saturday afternoon and like look it up, right? So I am definitely focused on real businesses and things that are live and solving real problems. And I get excited about those companies that bridge the gap between the TradFi products and the Bitcoin future, right? Whether it's lending or a wallet on the go or exchange options or global money transfers, remittances, settlement, real time. Those things excite me. The infrastructure excites me. I mean, what would happen if like an Uber does implement Bitcoin, accept Bitcoin? What are they going to do? Are they going to build it out? Are they going to what would their solution be? Are they an open node client? They do something with Breeze. How are they going to handle it? So I like thinking about things like that because I think that if TikTok implements Bitcoin, what are they going to do? Which Bitcoin startup would land that contract? So those type of things. Sorry if that's on a tangent. I'm just rambling.
No, I love it. I remember being in El Salvador last year and just kind of being a fly on the wall and listening to you talk to different founders and different creatives in the Bitcoin space. And you give so much amazing insight. And that makes me lead to my next question, which is let's talk about the founders where you mentioned Edge Wallet, for example. For those looking to secure funding for their Bitcoin projects, what are some top strategies or pieces of advice you give them to succeed?
Well, so that's a whole thing, and I have a fun little presentation on it. I should probably work on that and evolve it. But what do you do to start, right? The first thing you really have to do is probably incorporate properly, right? And that's really important is to set your company up to raise, set yourself up so that you can actually do this in a way that A, you don't have to redo it or spend more money fixing it in the future, but just do it right from the start. Okay, so all of that stuff, and I'm hoping that we can help with some of that, right? Another department we're working on that can really two people out of a hackathon, incorporation in a box services, get them set up, cap table, options pool, some documents in a box, um, get them an EIN, get a bank account open, kind of start right for a good price. That's something that I think we can do a lot of good, and we can kind of get out there and try and help some people get those things off the ground. But without that, you're kind of dead because if you don't have that, it's going to be difficult. And then what do you do? I mean, right now it's very hard. So I went through it myself before, and I'm going to be going through it again here. It's hard to raise money right now. It's very difficult. So the idea of like, hey, I got this great idea for a company, and now I need to raise $3 million. That's not right now at this time. You need to bootstrap something. You need to get something live. Milestone-based financing, and it's all about profitability and runway and um, you know actually it's harder, which is nice because you before not too long ago, I know it seems hard to remember, you could kind of have a really good idea and be somewhat of a noteworthy person and probably put together $1.5 million fairly quickly. That was the environment not too long ago, and it'll be here again, but it's definitely not here now. So I can't speak for everyone else because every situation is different. Where are you at? Are you pre-revenue, but you have a live product? I mean, everything is in a different case, but I can just speak from my own experience, right? So what would I do? Okay, I got this new thing. I'm going to launch Thunder Funder, this whole shebang, right? Had to do a new incorporation, parent company, wholly owned entity, yada, yada, yada. And, I chose to just raise $500,000. It's not a lot of money. I mean, you talk to a lot of people, they say that you should raise more or whatever. And I chose to set what I feel is a very low and fair valuation because that's the deal that I would want on the other side of that table because that's usually where I'm sitting as the VC. So I set a deal that I would like to see, also with a discount on my own note. If I don't clear the cap, everyone also gets a bonus. Okay, I put that in there. And it was not that difficult to raise that 500. Still it's raising. Okay, but so what do? Do you put together a little $25,000 checks here and there, 25,000 here, 25,000 there, 50,000 here, etc. And that's enough to get maybe a CTO or a co-founder or a VP of engineering or just some small bit of let's go fuel. Okay. And that's it. That's what you really need to get started. And there's a lot of people who think that their first fundraise out the gate, they're going to get $2 million, and you'll never get in business. You'll spend your life asking people for money. So that's kind of what I did. And I'm at a situation now, right? We had the big announcement in Nashville. Okay, Thunder Funder is up and running. We're getting the pipeline set. What would another founder do maybe in my situation? Now they want to go out and raise $2 million. And they want to go out and do this big thing. Like, I'm not interested in that. You know, a few, maybe another four or $500,000. Pad the runway slightly. We're heads down. Let's get to revenue. Let's get to a cash flow break even. Let's get some numbers on the scoreboard. And we can talk about a bigger round later. So that's how I'm handling it for myself. But
Yeah.
it's a choose your own adventure book, Dawdu.
Mike, for the people that are not inside of the Bitcoin ecosystem, I think that they would feel like you're being very humble, and I'm going to kind of pontificate on your successes here a bit. So, like, This guy, Mike, a lot of people don't know him, but he's done a whole lot in this space. Even through Lightning Ventures, like you've invested in over 40 Bitcoin companies. That's no small feat. And of course, there's ups and downs, there's hurdles. Right now, the economy's kind of shitty. So people aren't excited to put money into Bitcoin companies. We get it. But can you share a couple of the success stories that stand out to you? And of course, any lessons that you learned along the way, being this powerhouse VC that you are?
It's funny. You're too funny, man. Powerhouse VC. We would like to have a little fun. We like to do things a little bit differently with the syndicate versus just focusing on funds. So success stories. It's early, right? So previous to this, I psychotically invested in a bunch of angel investments, like way too many. Not just Bitcoin startups, but all over the place. And you just try to learn as much as you can through the experiences and updates from founders and whatever you can get from that. And that was a lot of experience there. Seeing how things can go uh, up and then to zero, or seeing how things can go up and stay there very fast. Um, so definitely a lot of success stories there. And I started in late stage companies. Okay, so when you have a good IPO market, it's one after another. It's Spotify, it's Lyft, it's DoorDash, it's Robinhood, it's whatever you invested in those later stages. There's a nice level. It's Poshmark, Pinterest, Slack. I hit a lot of them, right? But they weren't huge checks, but they were nice exits and good experiences. DraftKings, um, Palantir. I can't even think of them all. But that was a good. It
Zoom.
was it was a good
Yep.
run there, right?
Yep.
And then, out of the blue, what is the Mike Tyson? Everyone's got a plan until you're punched in the face.
Yep.
Out of the blue is kind of over, okay? And then everything dries up and interest rates, and you're getting paid, 5, 6% a month not to invest. So everything kind of came to a halt there. As far as Lightning Ventures successes go, it's so early, we don't really have them.
Yeah.
A lot of the Bitcoin VCs, they raised kind of in this tough area. This 2021, when we invested, or when we started to raise or started putting together our first fund, um, it was a whole different environment. And everything has a whole different price to it, and a lot of these Bitcoin VCs were deploying that, right? It'll be interesting to see how that lands in afterwards. But we have plenty of portfolio companies that are actually doing well. I mean, if you're selling Bitcoin, you're probably having record months, month after month. I know it for a fact. I mean, many of our exchanges and Bitcoin companies, and like that's my sweet spot, right? The Bitcoin only exchange in India, Brazil, Canada, US, Europe, all over. That type of world, they're all having record months. The more fintech sort of like companies that are in multiple countries, okay, all having record months. Even like the rewards volume, and just companies like that are all having record months. If it's integrations, pipelines are packed of people that are coming on board. So there's a lot of things that are looking well, but it's not like something that trades every day, right? Like we can't pull up a trading view chart of a privately traded company. I mean, I guess you could kind of make one. I guess if they had enough milestones and dots to connect there, I guess you could do that over time. But really, what you have is kind of good signs for companies in terms of their numbers and KPIs. But you might not have that markup in your portfolio yet, because that's lagging, right? A lot of times that takes a while. So everything that's not out of business now,
Yeah.
that's great. And hopefully it turns around fast.
Yeah. And Mike, when it comes to investing in Bitcoin, because it seems like on the traditional financial aspects of things, like of course there's volatility there, but in Bitcoin there's even more volatility, more than the average investor can handle. That's why we're like a unique sector of people, individuals in this Bitcoin space. The idea of hodling or holding on for dear life is widely popular, but diversification is also a critical strategy. How important do you believe diversification is within the realm of Bitcoin investments? And how do you advise investors to approach it, especially when considering both direct Bitcoin holdings and investments in Bitcoin related companies?
Well, it's always Bitcoin first,
Yep.
right? It's Bitcoin first and Bitcoin forever. I mean, you need to own Bitcoin and you need to consistently, you'll be buying Bitcoin the rest of your life, right? As far as investing and diversification goes, I like early stage companies as a whole, which is why I invested in so many of them. And it's a great experiment, and we'll see how it goes over time. But I like that this area, and I've seen the amount of money that can be made investing in early stage technology companies. Um, and it only takes a few or one really to make it worthwhile. So for me as a like angel investor, right, investing just my own money part time, something like Lightning Ventures or the syndicate world makes a lot of sense because for low minimums you can vet deals and learn a lot and potentially participate. And not advice, but it's definitely better to invest small amounts of money into lots of deals that you have high conviction for or like, or when you're on your journey, right? You might like things, might like more things and then grow to like less things, or vice versa, whatever you're looking at. Invest a small amount of money first and read and learn and see how it can go. And you can always invest more later. There's always more rounds. Okay. There's always more rounds, and you can invest all the way um, or more times in the future. And it's a process. So that's what I would say. Rather, you talk to somebody who had a terrible experience in angel investing, and it's usually something like, yeah, I put 50K into two deals and they both went to zero. I'm never doing that again. That is not what you want to do. Why don't you put like 5 grand into 20, um, and follow them, or 2,500 into 40 different investments. It could be the same investment again on a follow on. It could be into the same company, but just break it up and read and learn. That's what I would say.
Sound advice, sound advice. Mike, I got to ask you about your journey from the music business into Bitcoin. I think a lot of people don't ask you this, and I just doing my research, I was so like curious about this. So, you've had this fascinating career from concert promotion to artist management and now angel investing in Bitcoin companies. How do you say the experience in the music industry shaped your approach to entrepreneurship and investing now?
Well, I'm also crazy. Okay. I mean, I've had a crazy life and I love it and wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, I lived on a Mississippi plantation farm in outside called the Crossroads, the mystical place where Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil at the Crossroads. Like I lived there on this place called the Shack Up Inn. It was on a plantation farm where the one row cotton picker was actually invented. And I wrote a couple hundred pages about living in the Mississippi Delta. You know what I mean? Like I've done weird stuff. I had a retail store in Arizona in my 20s. I had this art gallery that also did music shows for a while in downtown Phoenix. I lived above a concert venue that was pretty famous. I mean, definitely a little controversial, pretty famous, that held, 12 or 1,300 people or so and had a few multiple rooms. I toured with bands. I toured with bands around the country and world. I think the only state I've never been to is Alaska. Did a lot of touring life, whether it's a van in a trailer or in a tour bus, with a whole
Yep.
crew, like the whole shebang. We had a concert company. We booked 35 concerts a month in Phoenix, Tucson, and Albuquerque. Like that's an insane number. 35. Think about that. Me with two partners. Sometimes one of us are at a different show running it. Whether it's 50 people up to 5,000, I think was actually our largest. So look, I did a lot of that stuff for a long time and I loved it. And then I moved to New York City and pretty much just started over. I mean, had a crazy life in there. And in the process, I kind of just fell in love with investing in early stage companies. I mean,
Yes,
I had a
no, that's
bar
a
in New York. We had the second Bitcoin ATM in Manhattan. That was fun. I had a
yeah.
cafe there that my wife ran, but we got rid of that. Like, was a part owner in a flower shop for a little while. Like, I'm a weirdo, man.
That's why I mentioned earlier in this conversation about like your time in New York, and I feel like I'm an East Coast guy myself, so I've been to New York plenty of times. I have family in New York, and New York is just like a weird melting pot. Like I feel like if you're a hustler and you have ambition, you can find some really interesting and unique people there. And you mentioned before, Mike, that you believe everyone should invest in Bitcoin companies, not just the suits. How do you see the democracy of investment playing out in the Bitcoin space, and what impact are you hoping to have moving forward?
I'm hoping that we're a big part of the impact, to be honest with you. I mean, that's what we're spearheading. That's what we're trying to do. That's all
Yep.
I've been trying to do from the beginning with Lightning Ventures. Building up the syndicate and getting a group of what I like to call the world's largest Bitcoin focused angel investing network. Okay, it's technically true. I don't know if anyone disputes it. But, forming that, getting people together, getting really cool people in one group. Can we have communication? How do you manage a community? And trying to rally around these companies as much as we can, or for whatever opportunity there is. And, that was the goal. And bring that to people, because I remembered how hard it was to find deals when I wanted to start investing. When I wanted to start investing, it was not easy. And just, who do you trust? Who's sending you these things to review? And you go to a lot of these crowdfunding websites, and no offense, but they're not necessarily great deals. I'm trying to be nice, but like, they have to make money, these other portals. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have a great reputation and a lot of big companies also do deals there. Like Substack did one, Mercury Bank did one. There's a lot of companies that want to do Reg CF and let their customers and users and people kind of align interests and invest in them, and be invested, right? That's super powerful, and some companies recognize that. So, um, you know, that's not every deal though. Most deals are completely different. Okay. So, while it is equity and it is an investment and it is ultimately a tax loss, right? If you lost $1,000 in some start engine deal, okay, and it dissolves and goes to zero, you get $1,000 write off that year, right? That happened. It's not like an Indiegogo. You're not kickstarting a thing. It's still an investment. It just wasn't a good one, right? So I'm hoping that our platform, right, Thunder Funder, now that it's technically open to everyone and there isn't a whole hurdle, and we can be more public, because that's another thing, is those other deals are done under what's called a 506B. You can't solicit them. You can't just go on Twitter and say, "Hey, we're doing this deal for XYZ company in the old Lightning Venture Syndicate." There is a way to do that, but it's complicated, right? So they have that private investor accredited syndicate that anyone can join, and now you have something more public, where you can be more public about the raises and the opportunities with excruciating care and review, because we're talking about FINRA, and I'm just getting started here. So there's a lot that also goes along with that, but there's more that can be done. So it's a big deal. We just got to get live and get rolling, and hopefully have a vibrant community that's not just investors. We want everyone there. I want everyone there. And if we can pipe in Bitcoiner jobs, or if we can add other things, and social elements to it, it's going to be a great community, and that's really what we need to get right.
Yep, love it. I love it. I'm definitely interested. I've been looking into it ever so slightly, and of course, this conversation is going to kind of bolster that initiative for me to kind of push forward and really like promote this to as many people as I can within my network. Being a podcaster, I have a lot of people in the Bitcoin space that would be interested in such a thing as Thunder Funder. So I'm definitely going to do my part to make sure that that's brought around to the masses as much as possible. Um,
I
Mike,
mean,
with such, oh, go ahead,
let's
Mike.
just let's just let's just have some fun here. Can we play around for a minute?
Yeah, yep.
All right, because we're like working through the product here, having some fun. But
Yep.
if you created an account on Thunder Funder and you started pimping out your profile
Yep.
and you started putting in your socials and then you maybe put in your RSS feed or something and you had a creator badge, right?
Yep.
And there was a link there that was like your stuff, right? And there was an ability to connect with people. I mean, that would be kind of like maybe a cool way to find sponsors, right?
Yep.
And I'm not talking about like random spam, but like, why isn't there some type of like marketplace, even if it was like anonymous, like really cool Bitcoin podcast, like looking
Yep.
for this, and there was maybe a project or somebody and that was able to facilitate that deal for you. And I'm not talking about things that make me money here. This isn't
Yeah.
bringing in platform revenue, but like, how do we create these type of opportunities and things?
Yeah. I agree. And even for myself, like a lot of people have asked me about this podcast, like, why don't you have any sponsors? You're kind of doing it out the mud. And I've always told people that I'm so terrified because when you look at a lot of the Bitcoin only podcasts, like if you get the wrong sponsor or the wrong company that rug pulls the industry, you get so much heat from people. It makes me super nervous. So now with Thunder Funder, I kind of know who's running it. I know the mindset of the people behind the company. And I'm like, I would feel more comfortable going through Thunder Funder to get a sponsor than trying to do it through a third party or myself saying, okay, Celsius sounds great now, and then something happens and then you look crazy. So thank you for that clarification, Mike, for sure. So Mike, with such a broad and varied career, how do you keep learning and staying ahead of the trends? Because that's one of the things that I've always had an issue with in Bitcoin. Like once you're in and you're immersed and you're orange pilled, you kind of feel like you've seen everything is being rehashed. So both in the Bitcoin space and in other industries, what makes you still passionate and want to learn more about Bitcoin every day?
Well, I don't know how people can keep up. I think you have to stay in your lane, or once you kind of realize what you were put on this earth to do, and you just are doing that, and you try to do that as great as you can, um, and you do the best you can with everything else. But there's so many things going on in Bitcoin kind of all the time, right? Are you up on the OpCat? Are you up on, BIPs and bolts and, layer twos and, mempool and spammers and scammers. And there's so much to stay up on all the time. And like, besides getting into all that, like do what you're meant to do in the world,
Yeah.
like do what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, I joke about like my start nine here in the house. I could literally just play with it, right? I could just all day for, probably 2 to 5 days and just ham, right? you know Sit with AI. I made Pac-Muzz one night. It's a pretty fun little game I made, but just really to learn about everything there is. But boy, it's hard. I mean, you're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah. And on a more personal note, and I always ask people this, like kind of their philosophy behind Bitcoin and why they do certain things in this space. On a more personal note, what's your personal mission as an investor and entrepreneur? And what I mean by that is, 40 years from now when you're retired and you're kind of like sitting back, like, what do you want people to say how you aligned your work in the Bitcoin space?
Wow, that is an absolutely excellent question. Um, my idols, or should I say, a lot of my inspiration in this world comes from people like Brad Feld, Paul Graham, Naval Ravikant, to to some degree, I guess Jason Calacanis to some degree, but the people who really learned and started these things, Paul Graham, Brad Feld, especially, they brought so much good to to the whole ecosystem of startups and early stage entrepreneurship. And what they've done is like just absolutely amazing. Forget about how their individual funds performed and their own track records and all of those other kind of things that a lot of people have, that's great and all. But they've really changed the game and done a lot of good for a lot of people, right? AngelList had something called the Stack product. It was like nearly free. you like incorporate your company. Some of it was crude as far as cap table management and other things, but like that was a major tool for founders, and they just ate a lot of costs on that, and just like that was such a good product, right? They don't have it anymore. But and like everything with Techstars, and even the free classes and education that you can learn from something like Techstars in the early stages, like they did a lot. And you look at people like in the music industry, like some of my uh, inspiration idols there, someone um, like 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 in the Fillmore, you know, um, Bill Graham, like a concert promoter during that time, and you're working with the people that you really want to work with, and you're working with a very special group of people at a very special point in time in history. If you've ever looked at concert posters and things from, the 60s and the Fillmore in San Francisco, there's also a Fillmore East in New York City. I mean, Bill Graham was like the best concert promoter, right? So, and you catch that wave of what you're working with, what is there at the time, right? So we're catching a wave right now of what Bitcoin startups there are. And if this is going to go the way that we all think it's going to go with Bitcoin, there's going to be a lot of Bitcoin startup unicorns and decacorns and the whole shebang. Like it's going to be nuts. Are they here now? Are some of them amongst us? I don't know. We'll see. I hope so. That's what we're betting on. And I would really like to help as many founders and entrepreneurs and Bitcoin related companies that are doing good in this space. I would like to help as many of them as possible in whatever capacity we can. Because we're running a no revenue shop here at Lightning Ventures, okay? And like that's got to change, and we're growing in our own growing pains to getting that rolling, which is why Thunder Funder is going to be nice. It's because of that, at least. So, yeah, those are my mission, and to bring these opportunities that are otherwise inaccessible is very hard. It's very hard for the average person if they love Swan Bitcoin. If that is their favorite company, it is very hard for you to invest in that company. It takes work. It takes work to get the whole thing. Okay. So if you wanted to invest in whatever that company is, right? Like maybe they're doing flying cars. I mean, whatever they're doing, that world, it's hard to get into. And what you can get into is usually a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Okay. So to try and merge both of these in the Bitcoin land and have that's really what I'd love to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's such awesome advice. And I think that there needs to be more people in the world like you that just, not withholding the information, not withholding the opportunities and spreading that around, because as a collective, it helps everybody on a grander scale. And I have one last question for you, Mike, which is looking ahead, where do you see the future of Bitcoin focused investing going? And how do you envision your role in shaping that future through Lightning Ventures and Thunder Funder?
Jeez. Wow. All right. Well, I see it only going up as far as, Bitcoin venture capital land, as we call it. I think it's pretty nascent right now. It's pretty small. There's maybe a handful of people who are dedicated solely in this area right now. And I think there's a lot of crypto broader people who are kind of keeping an eye on it, right? But they're not like full on in it. So there's a lot of that, and even just the data that came out in that most recent Trammell report. The Bitcoin land for investment has outperformed and is catching a lot of the crypto during this last not so nice period, even that we're in right now. A lot of those people are migrating from crypto VC land over here. They're having a hard time comprehending why there's no token. It's so hard to understand why there is no token when you do a real venture capital investment with a real company. And they're slowly trying to invent some tokens, by the way. Look at that. They're coming out of the blue. But yeah, so I mean, I hope that whether it's me or a collective of people, or I hope that the Lightning Ventures Syndicate uh, still does what it's supposed to do over there, because that will be better for a lot of people's situation, right? A lot of founders don't, maybe a crowdfunding thing isn't the best move right now. Maybe sometimes it is, right? So having a private accredited syndicate and Lightning Ventures and maybe a Node 2 fund, maybe a small mining fund, a boutique series of funds, which is what I had intended, I hope, right? But right now, um, I need to get Thunder Funder like kicking ass. That's what we need to do. So, and I'm hoping that through building the community and having opportunities on the in there and good deal flow, and I'm just really hoping that just takes off.
Nice, nice. I really appreciated this conversation, Mike. This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us today. I know my audience will find a lot of value in what you shared. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into the Bitcoin Source. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on all things Bitcoin. Until next time, keep stacking those sats. Mike, I really appreciate it. I don't know if you have any last words you want to tell the audience before we close this off.
No, man. Thanks for having me on, and sign up on Thunder Funder. We're pushing updates almost daily. If you're a Bitcoin or open source startup and you're looking for funding, click on Raise Capital. Let's see what happens. We're building it all out now. You can check out ltng.ventures if you want to see what's going on over there too. And thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you. Peace.